Yeah, damn it. But blam, that's much better. What's going on, son? What up? What is it? Loud chat, chant? I don't know. I don't be knowing. Free Will by Sam Harris. The question of free will touches nearly everything we care about: morality, law, politics, religion, public intimacy. Public policy, my fault. Intimate relationships, feelings of guilt, and personal accomplishment. Most of what is distinctly human about our lives seems to depend upon our viewing one another as autonomous persons capable of free choice. If the scientific community were to declare free will an illusion, it would precipitate a culture war far more belligerent than the one that has been waged on the subject of evolution. Without free will, sinners and criminals would be nothing more than poorly calibrated clockwork, and any conception of justice that emphasized punishing them would appear utterly incongruous. And those of us who work hard and follow the rules would not deserve our success in any deep sense. It's not an accident that most people find these conclusions abhorrent. The stakes are high. In the early morning of July 23rd, 2007, Stephen Hayes and Joshua Komisarjevsky, that looks like how it's said, two career criminals, arrived at the home of Dr. William and Jennifer Petit in Cheshire, a quiet town in central Connecticut. They found Dr. Petit asleep on a sofa in the sunroom. According to his taped confession, Komisarjevsky stood over the sleeping man for some minutes, hesitating before striking him in the head with a baseball bat. He claimed that his victim's screams then triggered something within him, and he bludgeoned Petit with all his strength until he fell silent. The two then bound Petit's hands and feet and went upstairs to search the rest of the house. They discovered Jennifer Petit and her daughters, Haley, 17, and Michaela, 11, still asleep. They woke all three and immediately tied them to their beds. At 7 a.m., Hayes went to a gas station and bought 4 gallons of gasoline. At 9:30, he drove Jennifer Petit to her bank to withdraw $15,000 in cash. The conversation between Jennifer and the bank teller suggests that she was unaware of her husband's injuries and believed that her captors would release her family unharmed. While Hayes and the girl's mother were away, Komisarjevsky amused himself by taking naked photos of Michaela with his cell phone and masturbating on her. When Hayes returned with Jennifer, the two men divided up the money and briefly considered what they should do. They decided that Hayes should take Jennifer into the living room and rape her, which he did. He then strangled her to the apparent surprise of his partner. At this point, the two men noticed that William Petit had slipped his bonds and escaped. They began to panic. They quickly doused the house with gasoline and set it on fire. When asked by the police why he hadn't untied the two girls from their beds before lighting the blaze, he simply said, "It just didn't cross my mind." The girls died of smoke inhalation. William Petit was the only survivor of the attack. Upon hearing about crimes of this kind, most of us naturally feel that men like Hayes and Komisarjevsky should be held morally responsible for their actions. Had we been close to the Petit family, many of us would feel entirely justified in killing these monsters with our own hands. Do we care that Hayes has since shown signs of remorse and has attempted suicide? Not really. What about the fact that Komisarjevsky was repeatedly raped as a child? According to his journals, for as long as he could remember, he has known that he was different from other people, psychologically damaged and capable of great coldness. He also claims to have been stunned by his own behavior in the Petit home. He was a career burglar, not a murderer, and he had not consciously intended to kill anyone. Such details might begin to give us peace, or give us pause. Jesus, what the fuck is wrong with me? As we will see, whether criminals like Hayes and Komisarjevsky can be trusted to honestly report their feelings and intentions is not the point. Whatever their conscious motives, these men cannot know why they are as they are, nor can we account for why they are for why we are not like them. As sickening as I find their behavior, I have to admit that if I were to trade places with one of these men, atom for atom, I would be him. There is no extra part of me that could decide to see the world differently or to resist the impulse to victimize other people. Even if you believe that every human being harbors an immortal soul, the problem of responsibility remains. I cannot take credit for the fact that I do not have the soul of a psychopath. If I had truly been in Komisarjevsky's shoes on July 23rd, 2007, that is, if I had his genes and life experience and an accidental brain or soul in an identical state, I would have acted exactly as he did. There's simply no intellectually respectable position from which to deny this. The role of luck, therefore, appears decisive. Of course, if we learned that both these men had been suffering from brain tumors that explain their violent behavior, our moral intuitions would shift dramatically. But a neurological disorder appears to be just a special case of physical events giving rise to thoughts and actions. Understanding the neurophysiology of the brain, therefore, would seem to be as exculpatory as finding a tumor in it. How can we make sense of our lives and hold people accountable for their choices, given the unconscious origins of our conscious minds? Free will is an illusion. Our wills are simply not of our own making. Thoughts and intentions emerge from background causes of which we are unaware, and over which we exert no conscious control. We do not have the freedom we think we have. Free will is actually more than an illusion, or less, in that it cannot be made conceptually coherent. Either our wills are determined by prior causes and we're not responsible for them, or they are the product of chance and we're not responsible for them. If a man's choice to shoot the president is determined by a certain pattern of neural activity, which is in turn the product of prior causes, perhaps an unfortunate coincidence of bad genes, an unhappy childhood, lost sleep, and cosmic ray bombardment, what can it possibly mean to say that his will is free? No one has ever described a way in which mental and physical processes could arise that would attest to the existence of such freedom. Most illusions are made of sterner stuff than this. The popular conception of free will seems to rest on two assumptions. One, that each of us could have behaved differently than we did in the past, and two, that we are the conscious source of most of our thoughts and actions in the present. As we are about to see, however, both of these assumptions are false. But the deeper truth is that free will doesn't even correspond to any subjective fact about us, and introspection soon proves as hostile to the idea as the laws of physics are. Seeming acts of volition. Fuck, man, why am I fucking these words up? Seeming acts of volition merely arise spontaneously, whether caused, uncaused, or probabilistically inclined, it makes no difference, and cannot be traced to a point of origin in our conscious minds. A moment or two of serious self-scrutiny, and you might observe that you no more decide the next thought you think than the next thought I write. The unconscious origins of the will. We are conscious of only a tiny fraction of the information that our brains process in each moment. Although we continually notice changes in our experience, in thought, in our mood, perception, behavior, etc., we are utterly unaware of the neurophysiological events that produce them. In fact, we can be very poor witnesses to experience it itself. By merely, wait, hold on. I added a word that shouldn't have been there. Let's back up. In fact, we can be very poor witnesses to experience itself. There it is. By merely glancing at your face or listening to your tone of voice, others are often more aware of your state of mind and motivations than you are. I generally start each day with a cup of coffee or tea, sometimes two. This morning it was coffee, 2 cups. Why not tea? I am in no position to know. I wanted coffee more than I wanted tea today, and I was free to have what I wanted. Did I consciously choose coffee over tea? No. The choice was made for me by events in my brain that I, as the conscious witness of my thoughts and actions, could not inspect or influence. Could I have changed my mind and switched to tea before the coffee drinker in me could get his bearings? Yes, but this impulse would have also been the product of unconscious causes. Why didn't it arise this morning? Why didn't it arise this morning? Why might it arise in the future? I can't know. The intention to do one thing and not another does not originate in consciousness. Rather, it appears in consciousness, as does any thought or impulse that might oppose it. The physiologist Benjamin Libet famously used EEG to show that activity in the brain's motor cortex can be detected some 300 milliseconds before a person feels that he has decided to move. Another lab extended this work using functional magnetic resonance imaging, an fMRI. Subjects were asked to press one of two buttons while watching a clock composed of a random sequence of letters appearing on a screen. They reported which letter was visible at the moment they decided to press one button or the other. The experimenters found two brain regions that contained information about which buttons subjects would press a full 7 to 10 seconds before the decision was consciously made. More recently, direct recordings from the cortex show that the activity of merely 256 neurons was sufficient to predict with 80% accuracy a person's decision to move 700 milliseconds before he became aware of it. These findings are difficult to reconcile with the sense that we are the conscious authors of our actions. One fact now seems indisputable. Some moments before you are aware of what you will do next, a time in which you subjectively appear to have complete freedom to behave however you please, your brain has already determined what you will do. You then become conscious of this decision and believe that you are in the process of making it. The distinction between higher and lower systems in the brain offers no relief. I, as the conscious witness of my experience, no more initiate events in my prefrontal cortex than I cause my heart to beat. There will always be some delay between the first neurophysiological events that kindle my next conscious thought and the thought itself. And even if there weren't, even if all mental states were truly coincident with their underlying brain states, I cannot decide what I will next think or intend until a thought or intention arises. What will my next mental state be? I don't know. It just happens. Where is the freedom in that? Imagine a perfect neuroimaging device that would allow us to detect and interpret the subtlest changes in brain function. You might spend an hour thinking and acting freely in the lab, only to discover that the scientists scanning your brain had been able to produce a complete record of what you would think and do some moments in advance of each event. For instance, exactly 10 minutes and 10 seconds into the experiment, you decided to pick up a magazine from a nearby table and begin reading. But the scanner log shows this mental state arising at 10 minutes and 6 seconds. And the experimenters even knew which magazine you would choose. You read for a while and then get bored and stop. The experimenters knew you would stop a second before you did and could tell which sentence would be the last one you read. And so it would go with everything else. You tried to recall the name of the lead experimenter, but you forgot it. A minute later, you remembered it as Brent when it was actually Brett. Next, you decided to go shopping for new shoes after you left the lab. But on second thought, you realized that your son would be getting out of school early that day, so you wouldn't have time to go shopping after all. Imagine what it would be like to see the time log of these mental events, alongside video of your associated behavior, demonstrating that the experimenters knew what you would think and do just before you did it. You would, of course, continue to feel free in every present moment, but the fact that someone else could report what you were about to think and do would expose this feeling for what it is, an illusion. If the laws of nature do not strike most of us as incompatible with free will, that's because we have not imagined how human behavior would appear if all cause and effect relationships were understood. It's important to recognize that the case I'm building against free will does not depend upon philosophical materialism. There's no question that most, if not all, mental events are the product of physical events. The brain is a physical system entirely beholden to the laws of nature, and there is every reason to believe that changes in its functional state and material structure entirely dictate our thoughts and actions. But even if the human mind were made of soul stuff, nothing about my argument would change. The unconscious operators of a soul would grant you no more freedom than the unconscious physiology of your brain already. If you don't know what your soul is going to do next, you're not in control. This is obviously true in all cases where a person wishes he could feel or behave differently than he does. Think of the millions of committed Christians whose soul happens to be gay, prone to obesity, or bored by prayer. However, free will is no more evident when a person does exactly what, in retrospect, he wishes he had done. The soul that allows you to stay on your diet is just as mysterious as the one that tempts you to eat cherry pie for breakfast. There's a distinction between voluntary and involuntary actions, of course, but it does nothing to support the common idea of free will, nor does it depend upon it. A voluntary action is accompanied by the felt intention to carry it out, whereas an involuntary action isn't. Needless to say, this difference is reflected at the level of the brain, and what a person consciously intends to do says a lot about him. It makes sense to treat a man who enjoys murdering children differently from one who accidentally hit and killed a child with his car, because the conscious intentions of the former give us a lot of information about how he is likely to behave in the future. But where intentions themselves come from and what determines their character in every instance remains perfectly mysterious in subjective terms. Our sense of free will results from a failure to appreciate this. We do not know what we intend to do until the intention itself arises. To understand this is to realize that we are not the authors of our thoughts and actions in the way that people generally suppose. Of course, this insight does not make social and political freedom any less important. The freedom to do what one intends and not to do otherwise is no less valuable than it ever was. Having a gun to your head is still a problem worth rectifying, wherever intentions come from. But the idea that we, as conscious beings, are deeply responsible for the character of our mental lives and subsequent behavior is simply impossible to map onto reality. Consider what it would take to actually have free will. You would need to be aware of all the factors that determine your thoughts and actions, and you would need to have complete control over those factors. But there's a paradox here that vitiates the very notion of freedom. For what would influence the influences? More influences? None of these adventitious mental states are the real you. You are not controlling the storm, and you are not lost in it. You are the storm. Oh, fuck. Oh, I thought I knocked my coffee over. It's about to be all fucking bad. You see, I took my nail paint off. I'm about to redo it. I just wanted to put black on instead of red. Anyway, changing the subject. That's the name of the chapter. Changing the subject. It is safe to say that no one was ever moved to entertain the existence of free will because it holds great prominence. I'm butchering this sentence. Let's back up. It is safe to say that no one was ever moved to entertain the existence of free will because it holds great promise as an abstract idea. The endurance of this notion is attributable to the fact that most of us feel that we freely author our own thoughts and actions, however difficult it may be to make sense of this in logical or scientific terms. Thus, the idea of free will emerges from a felt experience. It is, however, very easy to lose sight of this psychological truth once we begin talking philosophy. In the philosophical literature, one finds three main approaches to the problem: determinism, libertarianism, and compatibilism. Both determinism and libertarianism hold that if our behavior is fully determined by background causes, free will is an illusion. For this reason, they are both referred to as incompatibilist views. Determinists believe that we live in such a world, while libertarians, no relation to the political philosophy, determinists believe that we live in such a world, while libertarians imagine that human agency must magically rise above the plane of physical causation. Libertarians sometimes invoke a metaphysical entity, such as a soul, as the vehicle for our freely acting wills. Compatibilists, however, claim that determinists and libertarians are both confused and that free will is compatible with the truth of determinism. Today, the only philosophically respectable way to endorse free will is to be a compatibilist, because we know that determinism, in every sense relevant to human behavior, is true. Unconscious neural events determine our thoughts and actions, and are themselves determined by prior causes of which we are subjectively unaware. However, the free will that compatibilists defend is not the free will that most people feel they have. Compatibilists generally claim that a person is free as long as he is free from any outer or inner compulsions that would prevent him from acting on his actual desires and intentions. If you want a second scoop of ice cream and no one's forcing you to eat it, then eating a second scoop is fully demonstrative of your freedom of will. The truth, however, is that people claim greater autonomy than this. Our moral intuitions and sense of personal agency are anchored to a felt sense that we are the conscious source of our thoughts and actions. When deciding whom to marry or which book to read, we do not feel compelled by prior events over which we have no control. The freedom that we presume for ourselves and readily attribute to others is felt to slip the influence of impersonal background causes. And the moment we see that such causes are fully effective, as any detailed account of the neurophysiology of human thought and behavior would reveal, we can no longer locate a plausible hook upon which to hang our conventional notions of personal responsibility. What does it mean to say that rapists and murderers commit their crimes of their own free will? If this statement means anything, it must be that they could have behaved differently, not on the basis of random influences over which they have no control, but because they, as conscious agents, were free to think and act in other ways. To say that they were free not to rape and murder is to say that they could have resisted the impulse to do so, or could have avoided feeling such an impulse altogether, with the universe, including their brains, in precisely the same state it was in at the moment they committed their crimes. Assuming that violent criminals have such freedom, we reflexively blame them for their actions. But without it, the place for our blame suddenly vanishes, and even the most terrifying sociopaths begin to seem like victims themselves. The moment we catch sight of the stream of causes that precede their conscious decisions, reaching back into childhood and beyond, their culpability begins to disappear. Compatibilists have produced a vast literature in an effort to finesse this problem. More than in any other area of academic philosophy, the result resembles theology. I suspect this is not an accident. The effort has been primarily one of not allowing the laws of nature to strip us of a cherished illusion. According to compatibilists, if a man wants to commit murder and does so because of their desire, his actions attest to his freedom of will. From both a moral and scientific perspective, this seems deliberately obtuse. People have many competing desires, and some desires appear pathological, even to those in their grip. Most people are ruled by many mutually incompatible goals and aspirations. You want to finish your work, but you're also inclined to stop working so that you can play with your kids. You aspire to quit smoking, but you also crave another cigarette. You're struggling to save money, but you're also tempted to buy a new computer. Where is the freedom when one of these opposing desires inexplicably triumphs over its rival? The problem for compatibilism runs deeper, however. For where is the freedom in wanting what one wants without any internal conflict whatsoever? Where is the freedom in being perfectly satisfied with your thoughts, intentions, and subsequent actions when they are the product of prior events that you had absolutely no hand in creating? For instance, I just drank a glass of water and feel absolutely at peace with the decision to do so. I was thirsty, and drinking water is fully congruent with my vision of who I want to be when in need of a drink. Had I reached for beer this early in the day, I might have felt guilty, but drinking a glass of water at any hour is blameless, and I am quite satisfied with myself. Where is the freedom in this? It may be true that if I had wanted to do otherwise, I would have, but I am nonetheless compelled to do what I effectively want. And I cannot determine my wants or decide which will be effective in advance. My mental life is simply given to me by the cosmos. Why didn't I decide to drink a glass of juice? Well, the thought never occurred to me. Am I free to do that which does not occur to me too? Of course not. And there is no way I can influence my desires. For what tools of influence would I use? Other desires? To say that I would have done otherwise had I wanted to is simply to say that I would have lived in a different universe had I been in a different universe. Compatibilism amounts to nothing more than an assertion of the following creed: a puppet is free as long as he loves his strings. Compatibilists, like my friend Daniel Dennett, insist that even if our thoughts and actions are the product of unconscious causes, they are still our thoughts and actions. Anything that our brains do or decide, whether consciously or not, is something that we have done or decided. The fact that we cannot always be subjectively aware of the causes of our actions does not negate free will, because our unconscious neurophysiology is just as much us as our conscious thoughts are. Consider the following from Tom Clark of the Center for Naturalism. Harris is, of course, right that we don't have conscious access to the neurophysiological processes that underlie our choices. But, as Dennett often points out, these processes are as much our own, just as much part of who we are as persons, just as much us as our conscious awareness. We shouldn't alienate ourselves from our own neurophysiology and suppose that the conscious self, what Harris thinks of as constituting the real self, is being pushed around at the mercy of our neurons. Rather, as identifiable individuals, we consist, among other things, of neural processes, some of which support consciousness, some of which don't. So, it's an illusion, as Harris says, that we are authors of our thoughts and actions. We're not mere witnesses to what causation cooks up. We, as physically instantiated persons, really do deliberate and choose and act, even if consciousness isn't ultimately in charge. So the feeling of authorship and control is veridical. Moreover, the neural processes that somehow, the hard problem of consciousness, support consciousness are essential to choosing, since the evidence strongly suggests they are associated with flexible action and information integration in service to behavior control. But it's doubtful that consciousness, phenomenal exercises, per se, adds anything to those natural processes in controlling action. It's true that human persons don't have contra-causal free will. We are not self-caused little gods. We are just as real as the genetic and environmental processes which created us and the situations in which we make choices. The deliberative machinery supporting effective action is just as real and causally effective as any other process in nature. So we don't have to talk as if we are real agents in order to concoct a motivationally useful illusion of agency, which is what Harris seems to recommend we do near the end of his remarks on free will. Agenthood survives determinism, no problem. This perfectly articulates the difference between Dennett's view and my own. As I have said, I think compatibilists like Dennett change the subject. They trade a psychological fact, the subjective experience of being a conscious agent, for a conceptual understanding of ourselves as persons. This is a bait and switch. The psychological truth is that people feel identical to a certain channel of information in their conscious minds. Dennett is simply asserting that we are more than this. We are coterminous with everything that goes on inside our bodies, whether we are conscious of it or not. This is like saying we are made of stardust, which we are, but we don't feel like stardust. And the knowledge that we are stardust is not driving our moral institutions or intuitions or our system of criminal justice. At this moment, you're making countless unconscious decisions with organs other than your brain. But these are not events for which you feel responsible. Are you producing red blood cells and digestive enzymes at this moment? I mean, your body is doing these things, of course, but if it decided to do otherwise, you would be the victim of these changes rather than their cause. To say that you're responsible for everything that goes on inside your skin because it's all you is to make a claim that bears absolutely no relationship to the feeling of agency and moral responsibility that we have made the idea of free will an enduring problem for philosophy. There are more bacteria in your body than there are human cells. In fact, 90% of the cells in your body are microbes like E. coli, and 99% of the functional genes in your body belong to them. Many of these organisms perform necessary functions. They are you in some wider sense. Do you feel identical to them? If they misbehave, are you morally responsible? People feel, or presume, an authorship of their thoughts and actions that is illusory. If we were to detect their conscious choices on a brain scanner seconds before they were aware of them, they would be rightly astonished, because this would directly challenge their status as conscious agents in control of their inner lives. We know that we could perform such an experiment, at least in principle, and if we tuned the machine correctly, subjects would feel that we were reading their minds or controlling them. We know, in fact, that we sometimes feel responsible for events over which we have no causal influence. Given the right experimental manipulations, people can be led to believe that they consciously intended an action, whether they neither chose it nor had control over their movements. In one experiment, subjects were asked to select pictures on a screen using a computer's cursor. They tended to believe that they had intentionally guided the cursor to a specific image, even when it was under the full control of another person, as long as they heard the name of the image just before the cursor stopped. People who are susceptible to hypnosis can be given elaborate suggestions to perform odd tasks, and when asked why they had done these things, many will confabulate, giving reasons for their behavior that have nothing to do with its actual cause. There is no question that our attribution of agency can be gravely in error. I'm arguing that it always is. Imagine that a person claims to have no need to eat food of any kind. Rather, he can just live on light. From time to time, an Indian yogi will make such a boast, much to the merriment of skeptics. Needless to say, there is no reason to take such claims seriously, no matter how thin the yogi. However, a compatibilist like Dennett could come to the charlatan's defense. The man does live on light. I mean, we all do, because when you trace the origin of any food, you arrive at something that depends on photosynthesis. By eating beef, we consume the grass the cow ate, and the grass ate sunlight. So the yogi is no liar after all. But that's not the ability the yogi was advertising, and his actual claim remains dishonest. This is the trouble with compatibilism. It solves the problem of free will by ignoring it. How can we be free as conscious agents if everything that we consciously intend is caused by events in our brain that we do not intend and of which we are entirely unaware? We can't. To say that my brain decided to think or act in a particular way, whether consciously or not, and that this is the basis for my freedom, is to ignore the very source of our belief in free will, the feeling of conscious agency. People feel that they are the authors of their thoughts and actions, and this is the only reason why there seems to be a problem of free will worth talking about. Where the fuck is my goddamn bookmark? Oh, hold up. Let me go get one. Hold up. Cause I'm done, dog. Hold on, put up. I'm always moving the goddamn. A spirit is like alcohol, dog. That's the only spirits I'm familiar with. Shit. Dad, you're proving my point. I don't know what you're talking about. There are two genders, bro. Yeah, and there's more than two. That's like saying, hey, a car has two wheels, dog. Like, yeah, it also has three and a fourth. Why stop at just the two? Thanks. I don't know what the fuck I do with my lighter and shit. At all, B. I feel like I'm about to drop this coffee and shit. Ha! What's on the cup? You about to laugh when you see it. It say Roman Catholic because he's a Catholic and he's roaming around. Roman Catholic, son. I mean, I suppose. You know. All right, but look, I only read nonfiction. You know what I mean? Like, I only read shit that's educational and true. You know what I'm saying? Or like books on like philosophy, you know what I'm saying? And shit like that. That isn't necessarily true, but it's just, you know. I don't have too many philosophy books. I got like one by David Hume, and I haven't even read it yet. You know, I only got started on it. But that's a big ass, thick ass, stupid, big ass book, bruh. Holy hell. That's why I'm like, fuck that shit. I got three other books I'm gonna try to knock out. I'm gonna knock out this free will that I was just reading. And then I'm gonna start on why I'm a atheist and not a theist. I'm gonna read that book next. And then I'm gonna follow it to finish it off, the coup de grace with the God Delusion. I'm gonna finish that one last because that's it's a bigger read. So, but yeah, so like whatever book you want to recommend, it's got to be something along those lines. Like, because I've recently been getting books that really are just on the topic of religion and Christianity. You know what I'm saying? So, hence the books I got. You know. Why? You was raised a Jehovah's Witness and now you spiritual. Well, you halfway there. You know. I would imagine you have some introspection left to do, some more research left to engage in. Bro, he's stupid. Why am I even here? This dude's just supposedly the expert. I'm out. All right, then. I'm going to holler at you, son. Who the fuck said I was an expert? I ain't no expert. I mean, I guess I can see how compared to the average Christian, I would be looked at as an expert because they don't read their Bible. And I do. I read their Bible and study their Bible. Like, shit. So, just by that little bit of information that I have that they don't, they automatically take me as an expert. I'm like, nah, I just know more than you do. I'm like, because you don't seem to give a shit. You seem you have all the answers, you know, to questions no one's asking seriously. Like, I'm trying to know. I want to know. You know what I mean? I want to be up there with like, you know what I'm saying, Dawkins and Hitchens and shit. I want to be the fifth horseman. You know what I mean? Or just create some all new horsemen. You know what I'm saying? Get Matt Dillahunty up in there. You know what I'm saying? Make him a horseman. Yeah, I mean, maybe make. Well, nah. I would say Seth Andrews, and if he ever watches this video, I don't mean nothing by that, Seth. He ain't gonna see this anyway. Like I would have said Seth Andrews, but I don't feel like he know enough. Like he probably know maybe a little more than I do about this shit, but you know. I don't know. Well, shit. If I feel like he know more than I do, and I don't feel like he should be a horseman, well, then I shouldn't be a horseman. Hey, that's fair. That's accurate. See how I just talked that out? Went from one position, thought about it a little bit. Now I'm on the opposite position. Like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Or maybe it's just not time right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me get a couple more books in. You know, I've only read maybe like 60 books on this, on well, in general, but on religion and Christianity specifically. Probably read about, I don't know, 10 or 11 books. You know what I'm saying? And that's not even including the Bible. Add the Bible, it's probably like 11 or 12 books. But, you know. Bro, that shirt is fire. You like that shit, son? Yeah. I want to wear it to church. I want to wear it to church, son. On Sunday. At the pulpit, goddammit. I want to be in the motherfucking Jesus, whatever, you know what I'm saying? And these motherfuckers like, who the fuck? Yeah, dog. No, I'm just bullshitting. I mean, I would do that, though. I just ain't trying to get beat up, as I already know that's what would happen. Because we all know Christians are violent. Like, they don't know how to turn the other cheek. You know what I'm saying? They don't know how to have mercy and love your neighbor. They don't know how to do that. All they know is retribution and violence. Motherfucking Christians, dog. Nah, they ain't all of them. You know, I'm being a little hyperbolic. It ain't all of them, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like an overwhelming majority of them are that way. Just stupid. You know what I mean? That's why I feel like the one dude was like, I wish I was brave enough to wear those shirts around the Bible thumpers I know. I'm like, I feel you, bro. Like, I don't always feel comfortable wearing this shit. I'll still do it. Like, I wish a motherfucker would. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, but that's why I do it. Like we can either have a conversation or we can hit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's whatever, for real, you know. But I would rather have a conversation. Like, let's talk it out. Ask me why I'm saying this. And then I'll tell you. You know what I mean? But most people don't. They just write me off and don't say shit. Don't say a fucking word. You know what I mean? I mean, not to my face. They'll say shit online all day, but... And I know they won't, because I be wearing this shit out in public. I be wearing this shit... Well, I don't wear this to work, because that'd just be a problem, but I wear it everywhere else. I'm gonna wear it to the grocery store later today and shit. No one ever says anything. They might give me a look or whatever, but usually they don't even go that far. You know what I mean? And I just think it's mostly just because I'm black. And so they're scared. You know what I mean? They're just racism, bigotry. That's all it is. They're like, oh, fuck black dude. Big black dude with his hat on backwards. I'm not going to say anything to him. He might pop a cap in my ass, you know, or some shit. And it's like, bro, I ain't trying to do none of that. I don't even own a gun. Fuck you mean? I've never owned a gun. I found a gun once. Yeah, man. I was walking to like my grandmama's house, and on the way there, I found a gun laying in the yard next to her house. Like it was like a little 9mm or whatever. That shit looked like it had been through some shit, you know. But anyway, it was laying in the grass. The next door neighbor's grass wasn't cut because you know they ain't lit there. Like the house was abandoned or whatever. So like that shit was just laying in the grass. I assumed somebody threw it out the window of their car probably when they was driving or some shit. So I picked that motherfucker up, took it back home. You know what I'm saying? And this was when I was with my ex-girlfriend. I took it home because her brother, like he had did 5 years for because they thought he was a kingpin in Kentucky, a drug kingpin or whatever. Him and this other dude. So, but when he got out, he had pretty much been staying with his sister, his little sister, my ex-girlfriend, that whole time. So when I got back to the house with the pistol, you know what I'm saying? I was like, yo, I didn't really want to say nothing because they was all tripping and shit. But I was like, I really just want to get rid of it for real. Like, I don't want to hold on to it. Like, this could have bodies on it and shit. Like, I don't want this shit. So, like, we ended up, like, giving it to, like, this dude we buy weed from all the time and shit. He was cool. I mean, that dude ended up going to prison and shit for murder. But we don't believe he did it. We think he got railroaded or whatever. But anywho, that aside, that's who we gave the gun to. So this nigga we got our weed from and shit. We ended up giving it to his ass, and he ended up giving us like a bunch of weed for it or whatever. Whatever, I ain't give a fuck. So yeah, but that was the only time I ever had a gun in my possession, outside of when I was in the Army. You know what I mean? Or outside of because when I came home from the Army. And this was with my ex-girlfriend. Like, we would go to the range sometimes. Like, I'd take her to the shooting range and we would shoot some guns there and shit. But because we're poor, we would only rent like the 9mm and shit. We only rent like the pistols, you know what I'm saying? We couldn't rent like the ARs and shit. That shit cost too much. But yeah, so anywho, I mean, I'm not anti-gun. I'm pro-gun. You know what I mean? I'm all for the Second Amendment. Shit. But I'm all for all of it, not just the part that says you can have one. No, it said well-regulated militia, motherfuckers. I'm all for the well-regulated part. You know what I'm saying? And along with you having one, you know. So yeah, I feel like you should have one and you should register it, and you should have to have a waiting period before you get it. You know what I'm saying? So they can do a background check, an extensive background check. You know what I'm saying? Just like they would do if you was trying to get like a security clearance with the government. Like, nah, son, you gotta wait till we clear some shit, and then we'll see if you can have a gun. You know what I mean? I'm like, but that's it. Because if we find out that you're like a danger to society or some shit, or you just problematic as fuck, like, well, then you can't have one, motherfucker. You know, you might have to go on the black market, and we know that it exists, and you can get one from there. But I mean, good luck, you know. But that's the other problem. It's like, so even if we were to have stricter gun laws, there's still the whole black market gun problem. Like, so that won't address that problem really. You know what I mean? So I don't, because at this point, like, we've just been so, whatever, guns. So much so that it's like, at this point, what really can we do? Like, even if we were to enact all the most stringent gun measures, you know what I'm saying? It still would not stop the black market gun trade. Like, it just would not stop that. You know what I mean? And so I just feel like, and there's already too many guns in circulation. So at this point, it's just a done deal. It's a wrap. Like, they're just going to keep making more, and people are going to keep buying more, and we're going to continue to have more guns than people, and there continue to be more gun deaths year after year as a result. You know, and it's a reality we're going to have to live with. Like, I pretty much gave up on guns in America. Like, bro, that's a wrap. After Sandy Hook, they didn't do shit after them kids getting killed. Like, bro, okay, whatever, Columbine, all right, Virginia Tech, all right, whatever, you know, but damn, elementary kids? And we still like, nah, son, I just gotta have my gun, fuck these kids, I guess. I'm like, oh, wow. I lost a lot of hope after that. I'm like, well, that was pretty much I thought that that's what would have did it. Like, oh, it's for sure they're gonna pass this shit now, right? Like, these are little kids. It's like, I don't think you know how depraved Americans are. They just talk shit about caring about kids. It's just a good line to say to make you seem like a decent person, even though nothing you do, no policy you vote for actually will go towards helping the maximum amount of kids that you could help. You know what I mean? If anything, it'll probably make the lives of a lot of kids even more precarious. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I'm just like, they don't give a shit about kids. No one gives a shit about kids. It's just a talking point, just like the pro-lifers. They're not pro-life. They're pro-birth. You know what I mean? Because are they going to fund any policies that go towards helping poor single mothers, especially if they're Black? Hell no. You're going to be like, nah, man, not my tax dollars ain't helping no poor people. They need to get off their ass and all that bullshit. So get the fuck in. So you don't give a fuck about the kid. It's like, you don't give a fuck, you know what I mean? Because you're bigoted or racist or whatever the fuck. You know, you don't really give a shit. It's just a talking point. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do to help to make sure that this baby, once it's born, has the best shot at success and a decent life? You know what I mean? You're not. You're not going to do anything. You know what I mean? Like, if you had your way, like, no, not my tax dollars. I'm not helping fund nothing that helps poor people. Because it's not like it just goes to helping the adults. Like, the reason that helps even there for the most part is to help you because you have a child. Otherwise, you would even qualify for half of the programs. You know what I'm saying? Just the fact that you have a kid gets you in the door for the programs. You know what I'm saying? Oh, fuck, I spilled this shit on me and shit. Fuck. But anywho, but you don't want to fund that shit, so you don't really give a fuck. And you probably support the death penalty. You probably was for the Iraq war, where we just illegally invaded another country for 20 years and just murdered people there. You know, willy fucking nilly. I'm like, but you ain't had no problem with that. Why you pro-life? I guess, well, pro whose life? Pro what life? You know what I mean? Like, what life are you pro, motherfucker? Like, is it just a talking point? Because, like, what are you going to do actually to help any of this life that you claim to be pro? Fuck out of here. You're pro-birth. Like, and I don't even know why you're pro that. Just because, like, your Bible said so? Fuck your Bible. Fuck your God. Fuck your Jesus. Fuck all that shit. Fuck everything. You know what I mean? Let me get this coffee spilled out real quick. Fuck. That was most of it, I guess. Mary J, I'm so glad you're here. Man, we got some dumbass people in chat, son. Need to get them out of here. I'm just playing. I don't know yet. What time is it? I don't know. Let me see. 6:55 p.m. Eastern Standard. I'm a dumbass, definitely. Oh, I know I'm a dumbass. I just don't want to be as dumb as the next guy in the room. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm in a room full of people, I don't want to be the biggest dumbass. You know what I'm saying? I want to know I'm not. Like, I'll still be a dumbass, just not the biggest dumbass, you know? I want to know what I'm talking about, depending on what we're talking about, you know? Yeah. You said, I do see no God. I mean, I just don't see any evidence for one. I'm not saying there isn't any gods. There may be. Just that if there is, that motherfucker ain't left no evidence. Not a shred, not a crumb, not a morsel. None. It's all speculation, all conjecture. No one fucking knows. And anyone thinking that they know for a fact there's a God is lying, because you don't know that. If you're being honest with yourself and everyone else, then you are an agnostic theist. Just meaning, just like me, I am an agnostic atheist. Because that answers two different questions. I'm glad I brought that up, actually, because so many people get that shit wrong. Like, oh no, theism means you know there's a God. Atheism means you know there's no God. And, you know, agnostic is like, I don't fucking know. It's like, no, it answers two different questions. So you can still be an agnostic theist and an agnostic atheist, you know. Because Gnosticism deals with knowledge, whereas theism and atheism deals with belief. You know what I mean? So if your belief graduates to knowledge, it's no longer a belief. It's now you know something, you have knowledge, you know. It's weird to say you believe something that is true. You know what I mean? Like, it's objective. Like, if you were to look at the sky on a clear day and be like, yeah, I believe the sky's blue. It's like, why would you say that? Like, you can see it's obviously blue. Maybe not the same blue I'm looking at, but we both would agree that shit is blue, you know? And for you to be like, I mean, I believe it is. It's like, why would you say that? Like, that's so, like, there's some reason for doubt. Like, maybe it's not blue. Like, get the fuck out of here. Yes, it is. Or like, I'm talking to you right now. And you're like, well, I believe you are. It's like, what? I don't know how else to prove it further. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we're in person and shit. How else more can I prove it? Like the only thing, the most I could do is present myself to you physically and talk to you, you know. And if that's not enough for you to be like, hey, I know I talked to you, then that's just weird. But anyway, so yeah. So an agnostic theist is someone who says, I don't know if there's a God or not, but I believe there is. And an agnostic atheist like myself says, I don't know if there's a God or not, but I don't believe there is. You know what I mean? Or at least when someone says there is one, and then I'm like, well, give me the evidence for it. And then they come up with their bullshit. It's either evidence that has already been thoroughly debunked as bullshit or just a straight up scam, or it's just a bunch of logical fucking fallacies. You know what I'm saying? So essentially you're left with no evidence. And as a result, I'm like, well, then I don't believe you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're saying there's a God. You give me no evidence for this God. So I'm left still like, well, I guess there isn't one. I mean, I don't know. You haven't presented the case. You know, it's like when OJ got off on his murder trial. Like we all knew he did it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but they couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did it. And therefore, he was found not guilty. He wasn't found innocent. He was found not guilty. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it works. So for your God, I'm not saying your God is innocent of existing. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying he's not guilty of existing. You know what I'm saying? Like, his existence has not been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Therefore, I cannot conclude that he exists. He may exist, but given the evidence or lack thereof, I can't come to the conclusion that he does. You know. So if it doesn't fit, you must have quit. You know what I'm saying? If it don't fit, you gotta quit. I mean, you know, so. And that's where I'm at. And for motherfuckers, you got the motherfuckers that are like, bro, look around you, as if it's obvious, you know, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking at. And then you got those ones who try to like get you in the deep philosophical fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like, gotta make these very complicated, educated, academic arguments. And it's like, if we gotta do all that to prove there's a God, is there one? We gotta go through all that? Like, you can't just like, bro, here's a picture of him, you know, or here's the last conversation I had, or here's the last text he sent, or whatever the fuck. Like, they're just nothing. Like, just this book that some motherfuckers wrote forever ago. And that's your only evidence? Like, that's not enough. If I was to say Gotham City is a real place because, you know, DC comic number 8 or whatever the fuck said there was, like, that's not enough to be like, yes, for sure, because that particular book said it. You know how many other people read that book and they all agree? You know, it's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, it just doesn't work that way. Like, I'm gonna need something outside of the Bible to substantiate the claims made within the Bible, and there are none. In fact, we got pretty much evidence to the contrary. They just don't like to accept it because of fees or whatever, you know. Meaty beat. If bread molds, did someone create the mold? Exactly. Or is that just something that happens naturally? Man, so look, I cleaned this coffee up, but all I really did was get a paper towel and like wiped it up. So now it's, you know what I'm saying, sticky and shit. So I gotta go clean this shit. Anyway, I'm gonna get off of here. I'm hot as fuck. I need to go roll a blunt, smoke this cigarette, and then I gotta go to the grocery store. So thanks for watching, y'all. I'ma holla back.